Hello and welcome to Obscura Undead, taking on and interviewing James Edwards from Male Tears. Long anticipated, as we have now reviewed two of your albums. We have a new review coming out that you haven't seen yet.
Oh, hey. Hello, everyone. I'm James. I'm the head honcho of Male Tears, which is it's an electronic kind of like mutant disco, like dark wave band.
So what is your background with making music? Like, were you professionally trained? Was it like piano lessons as a kid?
No, I'm just pretty much self-taught. Like I had like a toy keyboard thing like as a teenager that I was just like learning how to use chords and how to write songs. And then around like 2010, I just got a hold of like some software so I could learn how to like program and like compose instrumentals. And that's pretty much what I've been at, just because like I was never someone who like wanted to just like post the first song that I ever did. So I've been at it for like 10 years, like just writing stuff in private. And only in like the last couple of years have I actually been like putting stuff out there for people's listening pleasure.
So, and then as far as the equipment goes, because you've got some sounds that like it sounds like you're using equipment from that era. Like it doesn't sound like you're trying to recreate with a modern piece of equipment. It sounds like you're using like a Korg or,
Well, I mean, we have a lot of equipment now to like use for like live stuff, like we have like a micro Korg that's really cute. And we also have like this Roland, what is it called? I think it's called like the SH101, which is like nice for sound effects and stuff like that. But no, everything is pretty much done on software, on Fruity Loops 9, and it's completely all like just presets. I don't buy anything. Like I just use like the little cheap synths that they have there. Like people forget that like default preset synthesizers is like a lot of what they used back in the
right,
day.
exactly.
You know what I mean? Like people were not like master synthesizer people, like bands like the Human League and Soft Cell, to an extent like OMD, these were not like synth, like, like, oh, wizards, like knowing like how to properly program things. Everything back then was like coming from the punk scene, like people didn't know what it did. They just know that if they like mess with it, it will eventually get something nice out of it.
Right. Like this button sounds cool. Yeah. Let's try that.
Right. Yeah. And sometimes they wouldn't even like mess with it. That's why there was like so many sounds that were so identifiable from back then, because a lot of people were just using like the preset, like, oh, that's the pan flute sound, like that's the one, like, well, let's use that, so it's all in the mixing. That's like my advice, or like my way to make music. It's all in the mixing and like how to apply certain effects. Like you can take like a really basic sounding synth and just apply like a little bit of flanger to it, like some light analog delay, some reverb, and all of a sudden you have like those background synths from Blue Monday, like it's all just like in the mixing. I think that personally, this might be controversial to some synth heads, but I think hardware synths are a scam. And I think that like you can honestly get everything secondhand, and like it doesn't matter what model of anything. Like this is why like I cover up all of the brand logo names on like our gear when we're on live, because like I just hate getting asked like, whoa, what is that? Oh, it's that. Because like people have been like, oh, that's kind of a bad synth, and it's just kind of like it works. It like, sometimes like we use like toy synths that were like toys in like the 80s or whatever. That's like, oh, my little like Casio, like beginner level, like that's Casio.
Right. It's a bad synth, but yet you're the one on stage that has made me that bad synth that sounds good. So,
I mean, like people will spend like thousands of dollars on like a room of like stuff just to make the most annoying synth wave you've ever heard. Like it's all like in the writing, and like it's up here. It's not the machine. Like we should stop putting so much of the credit into like machines, because a lot of people treat synthesizers like they're like guitars, like, oh, look at my Les Paul, I'm just like, get over it, nerd. Like, come on. Like it's about the art, it's about the final product. It's not about how you got there,
Right.
So that's how I feel. Not to sound so aggro, everybody. It's more of just like kind of just I don't know. I'm just passionate about that, like I just think like we don't want to make art into this like classist kind of like gatekeepy thing where it's like, oh, you need to have because you know
Right. You
stuff
need
is
to spend
expensive.
$4,000 on a synth in order to make the right.
Right. I think that's BS. I think that you can pretty much program whatever sound you want out of like the cheapest like little VSTs, or like just buy like a secondhand Behringer or something like that. It's fine. Like brand doesn't matter. Like none of that stuff matters. Yeah.
Yeah. So along with the recreate, like, so now going forward, you said you've been doing all the mixing. Have you talked to any other producers or any other bands about like collabing to mix maybe future pieces for you, or work with them, or?
In a way, sort of like well, a lot of other bands have hit me up to like remix stuff, but like I just don't really work like that, you know. Like I mean, it's kind of hard for me to remix other people's stuff. Like I feel like I'm somehow tainting it. But when it comes to like our stuff and other people, it's been kind of weird because like there are other artists like on my label Starfield, which by the way, when you brought them up, you like said that like, oh, they have a logo like Atari, and I was like, what? Like Atari logo? Like I've never seen it. I had to look it up, and I was like, oh, I guess it is that, you know.
Yeah, it's really cool. It makes me think of Atari, and it also makes me think of the movie The Last Starfighter, which are both big 80s.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
and like Mouse and Azzy, like none of us were really familiar with the label. It seems like they're a smaller label out of Canada.
Yeah, they small label, but I personally believe that the artists on the label are a bit of
Oh, right,
they're
right.
kind of like heavy hitters because FM Attack is like a huge name in like synthwave, you know, in the sense that like he's very well established at that point. So is Betamax, and the guy that kind of brought me into the label was Vandal Moon, Blake Voss.
Oh, nice.
So yeah, so Vandal Moon, I know that like I really, really respect that guy. Like I think that he's got it figured out. Like I think he's got the sound down, and he's like a marvelous singer. And like I hope I get to sound that way like eventually someday, you know, like because it's like really, really fabulous production, and he's got like such a great voice. I think those are like really, really cool people that I very much like look up to. And yeah, those guys are really cool.
Yeah, I didn't mean to, like, I wasn't trying to say like, oh, they're a small label, and
Oh no, of
like,
course not, of course
I
not.
didn't
We're
mean,
all small labels.
yeah, we're I mean, like, you know, video review or music review or interviewing wise, like I am a tiny little splash in a huge pond of other YouTube channels and reviewers and interviewers out there. So I understand. I'm just saying, like, in the scheme of it all, it wasn't a label we were familiar with.
Mm.
And so, you know, when we looked at them, they're like, okay, like they've got a few bands on there. It seems pretty cool. Love their logo. I'm curious to check out their other acts that they've got, you know, coming up. So
There are a lot of cool labels right now, though. Like outside of just Starfield, like there's like Gray Face Records. Do you know them?
not familiar with Grave.
Yeah, like they're also doing some of like the more contemporary dark alternative stuff. There's Artifact Records.
Right.
You know, I think that they've got like a lot of good. And then like I think like one of the I consider them kind of like the modern day like what's that label? The one from LA right here. Well, I'm sorry, label, legendary label from LA.
Leo?
That Cleo. There we go.
Yeah.
Cleopatra. I think that Dice Records is kind of taking the torch right now.
Yeah.
Dice Records, like they have like a lot of like heavy hitter bands on there, like Ricky, Drab Majesty, Choir Boy, High Functioning Flesh. Like they've got like a lot of good bands that I feel like are kind of like torch bearers. You know,
there's a band that you could like. That would be quite a show. You like opening or playing with Drab.
That'd be sick. I really like that band a lot.
Yeah, like that's
like I
natural match right.
This would be a good fit. Hey, Alex Klinko, Deb Demir, hit us. Yeah. I also like we really, really like well, me and Frank, we just have like such a similar taste in music. And we're both like around the same age. So like there's a lot of bands now that are kind of just like, whoa, like we feel like they're like up there with like the classics, you know. So like we really like Soft Kill and Actors and bands like that. Nuevo Testamento, of course. We really like Pixel Grip, which I think those that band is
Sure.
like fabulous, you
My
know.
wife loves Pixel Grip, and I had not been familiar with them until like the last few weeks. I mean, that's my ignorance right there. And she's been playing them a lot. And I'm like, wow, this slaps. This is a really kick ass sound. I like it. So yeah, I like them.
Yeah, very, very good, very good. Yeah. Speaking of which, though, because of we brought them up, but that brought up like another thought that I had was that like in the future we kind of just want to, which is a surprise to some people, but like we kind of just want to like strip the 80s elements going forward. We kind of want to, because like me and Frank, we grew up during the MySpace era, and
Right.
that was like such a time of like there was a lot of exciting DIY electronic stuff happening. And I remember when like we were both around the same age when Crystal Castles first
Right.
came out, and that was like I imagine that's what it was like being a teenager when like Kraftwerk was around. It was kind of like, whoa, these guys are like making electro freaking cool again. Like, cause
Right.
yeah. So like we
Um,
just kind of want to move in that way.
so okay, so that kind of leads into, you've mentioned Frank now a few times.
Yeah.
How did that partnership come together?
Very much in a kind of like in a funny organic way. He is someone that used to be a DJ in the scene for a while and then went low, and he kind of has been just working like with his Instagram page, just like sharing different contemporary bands, like classic bands. Like he is kind of like a curator, tastemaker type of person. So
Right.
like I always liked his style of music, and I came across his page when he shared one of my songs, and that's how we made the connection. But then I met him in person at one of my gigs like a few months back, and like immediately he like his style and everything like struck me because I feel like he just kind of stood out a little bit. And when he talked to me, I was just like, oh, this guy's vibe is like, I like his vibe. I like his style a lot. And one time I just like came over to hang out at his place because like, just by chance, we ended up like living really close to each other. And I saw that he had like a lot of like DJ gear, and like he had like synths. And I was just like, wait a minute. Why don't you join the band? Like you should just be in the band. And kind of just like that, like that's just how it happened.
That's
uh
so cool.
Very simple. Yeah, it wasn't diplomatic at all. Like we just kind of were like, yeah, let's do that. And like we're kind of just like party people. Like we
Right.
we treat every gig like it's kind of like, okay, this is our time to like
Okay.
sing and dance and have fun.
Wait, and so going between the first album, the debut album, to this new one for Trauma Club, I've seen reviews on it. The commentary and I've even noticed it myself, is like much darker than the first album.
Hmm.
How much of that was Frank? Is this part of this evolution of sound that you're kind of moving towards? Because this last album, there's a few tracks that are a little lighter, but overall it has a darker feel. It feels like you're part of the Trauma Club, you know?
Yeah. So basically, it's all just in a matter of influence. I'm very susceptible to like influences. Like I feel like it always comes out in like the music that I write. And when the first album was being done, the self-titled, I was just kind of like on this huge kick of like collecting like these like bargain bin records. Like I was like listening to a ton of like Spandau Ballet and like Baltimora and Thompson Twins, and just like pretty much just like whatever was kind of just like kitschy and poppy and like kind of electronic from the 80s. So like I was really into that stuff, and like the Human League has been like one of my top bands like forever. So that's kind of just the energy that I was going with, and that was made in a bubble, like just kind of like by myself.
I knew I
But
heard Baltimore in there.
oh yeah, I love that.
I
That was like
knew
my
it.
childhood anthem. Yeah, Tarzan Boy is like huge to me. Like that like unironically, I think it's just a fabulous song. um and So that was kind of the thing. I was like playing shows with those songs towards the beginning of the year, and when the restrictions were lessening a little bit during the summer, that's when I started like frequenting the dark goth kind of clubs, because that was kind of the crowd that was like really vibing with what I was doing. um and after a while, like I started to kind of like get more exposed to things like EBM and like the new kind of things like Sexual Purity and Minuet Machine and things of that nature. And also like Frank's taste in music just like started rubbing off on me, and I started writing stuff like that. But also the reason I called it Trauma Club was just because I met like a ton of people like at these kind of events that just carried a ton of like baggage with them. And like I realized that like there's just like a whole kind of a crisis a little bit, you know, where like a lot of people just they come to this place because like it seems like a lot of people have like this shared kind of like experience with the outer world, you know, like just the ones that kind of like make they feel like they're almost like not really welcome, like for whatever reason. And maybe that's why there's like such a huge like um amount of like why there's so much of an influx of like people of color and trans and gay people like into the scene, especially like more than ever now. Maybe that's a regional thing, but like I feel like it's kind of like everyone has like this shared experience with like, you know, feeling like they're part of an out group, or you know, and they want to be in an in group. And with them comes like a ton of like damage and stuff that like kind of stays there because like as everyone knows, you know, like no one is free from their issues. So I think that like all of these things kind of coalesced, and like I wrote this album kind of like based on like the kind of like experiences that I've seen and stuff like that. And like I think there is like a lot of, you know, trauma to be dealt with, but it's very much an outside kind of point of view. So yeah, you know, like with Frank's influence of his sound and like the kind of things that he likes, and then just like this story that I would hear from like a lot of different people, like that's why I think the album came out sounding like that, you know, and it might go further in that direction before it gets any brighter.
Oh, that's fine. Bring the darkness. Like it, I enjoyed it a lot. I really, and you hit on a lot of really poignant ideas with what you were just saying about where the scene is at right now. And I like, I have noticed more than ever, more of the disenfranchised and the what society would really view as the outcasts have been becoming, either they're coming into the scene more and more, or they're now no longer afraid within the scene to raise their voice up and say, this is who I am. So as you said, like a lot of the trans community coming in, the LGBT, you know, like the lesbians, gays, bis coming out more, or being more open about it. I'm really happy to see more ethnicities popping into the scene, more African Americans, more Latinos, more, at least in the US. And I speak to this from a US voice, more Asians within the scene, because I feel like that's been kind of hidden or not as open and as what I've seen the last several years, until within the last year or two, it's been more vocalized. So your album, I think, really touches on that from what I can hear.
Yeah. Awesome.
And I want to touch like, then that kind of brings me, wasn't sure how to word it or how to broach this, but so the first part of the question is like, my understanding is that like the Mexican culture, like there's a big goth rock and death rock scene down in like Mexico City. And you've got like Real Under and that crowd. But I saw you posting on Facebook about like how you've encountered some discrimination as like you're Latino, and correct me if I'm wrong. I thought I had seen that are you openly gay or like?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So it's like both those things within the Latin community. And how is that transferred over into like within the goth community? Has there been more acceptance here? Has it been like the goth side of you been disavowed by the Latin community, or I want to make sure I'm understanding all that correctly.
See, I think that like everyone kind of, I think that every society has like a little bit of like a alternative underbelly, you know? So like, I don't think it's like that out of the question, you know, when it comes to that stuff. What I mean to say, let me rephrase that. So like growing up, I think there's always been like a lot of like rockers, you know, like in at least our communities in like, you know, Los Angeles and like the greater part of like Southern California. I don't think that I've never really gotten that much discrimination based on like you know, being goth or whatever, like within within from like other Mexican people or anything like that. I think if anything, it's more of just like a general kind of like you're it's not because I'm Latino that like they're rejecting or that people reject that. It's more of just um because I'm just like weird in general, like, and I think that there is some of that. Like, I think there's also a bit of a generational divide, maybe at least just here, because a lot of, I mean, historically, there have always been people of color within every subculture.
Right.
But at the same time, like, I grew up only ever seeing white people being goth. So in a way, I kind of felt like growing up, I'm like, this isn't really for me. It's like not meant for me, like I'm an outsider to it. Um, but I was wrong, because like I think that there's a ton of people that kind of just have that in them, and like there's a lot of people that I'm meeting that just kind of went all out expressive with like their appearances and stuff like in the last 5 years that were kind of like, for lack of a better word, were kind of normies. But they kind of like broke out of that and want to kind of participate. And I think that sometimes like there is still this sense of like goth, especially being not so much with punk, because I feel like punk there's just like, especially like over here, there's like lots of Mexican people like within like the punk scene, historically, even like my friend John Barnett, who is like a old school punk. His experience has been that he's always ever only seen like Mexican people and like white people like all kind of like part of like this one thing. I think just goth in particular has this like kind of hang up, with like the classic kind of like the people that were there for like the 90s. I feel like that is like, there is a bit of like kind of a arms up kind of like defensiveness when they see like new people. I don't know if it's always racially motivated. I think maybe they just think that like we don't know anything or something, but uh I don't know. It's a weird subject, but I think that there's no harm in like bringing it up, really. Like, what's the worst that's going to happen? Like I think that like there's something to be said about all of that. Me personally, I just don't feel like I've ever been discriminated against for being like Latino within the goth scene. I don't think I've been discriminated for being gay either. I feel like I get more discriminated for like being accused of being a Robert Smith poser or something, because like a lot of people, it happens all the time. Like a lot of people like will like come up to me and they're just like, "Hey man, you look like Robert Smith. Is that what you're trying to do?" And it's just like I really can't help as long as I look goth, people are going to say that, like there's no way around that. But for sure, I think that it comes more of a place of just the old guard are just a little bit more exclusive, I think. But I get that, like I get that people just want to like really have like surround themselves with the people that they already have known for years, So I think that it's a lot of things, there's like a lot of angles to it, but at the same time, it's like, come on, let's get over it. Come on. Like, we need to let the young people in. We need to let people kind of come into this, even if you feel like they're not gother than thou or whatever, like you gotta like let people come in and like explore
Right.
and like get into it, because like I feel like I see so many like Zoomers, like people that are like 19 that like really want to come to like events, but they can't because, like they don't have all ages stuff anymore.
Right.
And I don't want to be like the kind of person that's kind of like, well, before you come in, you have to like know this stuff, and you have to like not ever wear any of this clothes, and you cannot dress in Killstar or whatever like that. Like people are going to like wear what they wear. It's fine. I'm a lot more lenient about that sort of stuff.
So do you see more discrimination in your local scene, or do you see more? And when I say discrimination, I mean like gatekeeping, like, oh, you can't sit with us because you haven't been around as long or know all the bands or wear the right clothes. Do you see that more online, or do you see that more in your local scene in person?
I feel that's a much more online thing. I see like it's harder to be like a dick to people in person. Also, like you're more likely to talk about someone behind their back in person than like in real life. Yeah. Then on the internet, like where like people are just kind of like so cruel, and like there's just a lot of that online. However, in real life, there is some goth club drama stuff,
Right.
in the sense that like a lot of like rival clubs and rival promoter groups, kind of
And that's
dislike each
everywhere,
other. That's everywhere, right? Where it's like, oh, there's a lot of that where it's like new clubs, like new club nights start to pop up. And then like immediately there's like a lot of like, because I'm an artist, like we're a band. So it seems like a lot of people like want to kind of play tug of war and be like, don't associate with them. They have abusers. Oh, don't associate with them. Those are posers, and like a lot of like back and forth where I'm just like, I'm more willing to believe that everyone's kind of like right in the middle, like it's probably a little bit of both. Like I feel like you're all kind of like being really shady and like, I'm just an artist. Why do I need to know about this? Like, why are you guys like involving me in this? But there's a lot of that, and it's also with like club goer people, like they're like, oh, that group of people, like they're not really like part of this stuff. They're all just like, they're more like TikTok kind of goth people that just like learned how to dress like Maddie Danger and they just listen to Moreau and that's it, and it's just kind of like, okay, like you're telling me this, but you're a club like band booker. Like, what do you care? You should be glad that people are just like coming to see that stuff,
Hey, they're giving you money. What do you care?
Right.
Who knows? Maybe they'll come and hear the music and end up liking the music while they're at it.
Yeah. Like 80s stuff is hot. Like people love that, and like the Zoomers are finding it now. And you can tell because you see like those kind of like stan culture is like starting to like grab a hold of bands like Depeche Mode, where like you get like memes made out of like old pictures of Depeche Mode, like a picture of like Martin Gore looking all like fetishy and stuff. And then people are like, wow, girl, she ate, like look at him slay and stuff like that. And like, it's starting to get them too.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. I definitely, I do see like a differentiation between online and in person, and any club scene that you're part of, you're going to have, like you said, rival promoters, rival DJs, this DJ got this gig over me. And then even within the scene itself, you're going to have like who's sleeping with who and who hurt who. And that person's, they might be racist or, like they beat their spouse or they're a predator
or sometimes it's as petty as like, oh, that DJ is a cheater. He cheated on his girlfriend. And it's just kind of like, okay, like, yeah, you're right.
That's human nature, and you get that in any part of society that you're in. But I think what I've enjoyed a lot though within the goth scene, especially lately, like I'm noticing it's becoming more inclusive. That we're trying to push out at least here in the U.S., we're trying to push out people in the scene that might be racist or bigoted or homophobic or transphobic and like just get those people out because we're all weird, like in this scene, it's like that's what we are. We are the people that are the disenfranchised and the disconnected from the rest of mainstream society, even though we take in those parts of mainstream society and we kind of turn it on its head and turn it into something dark and spooky and but that's who we are. And that's my opinion. So,
yeah, I think we should keep it weird for just about everyone. Like everyone should be allowed to be themselves in so much as you're not making it hard for someone else to be themselves,
Speaking of weird, let's go back to some weird questions.
Sure.
And then we'll kind of wrap it up here with that. So,
okay.
If you were to, what city do you think you would likely like wake up in if you were touring? To have like been taken out partying to the point where you were like blacked out drunk and you would wake up in a bathtub with your kidney missing. What city could you see yourself in the US that happening in?
Wow, that sounds like Tampa. No, I'm joking.
Yeah, we have a rep down here. That you're probably right. You
know what? It's probably just because you guys are on the other side of the country. No. Maybe somewhere in the Midwest. I mean, I don't know. It seems like kind of scary out there. Like just like in certain parts as it gets all barren. You know what? Maybe Texas, like as you're driving in like the areas where it's just like there's nothing for miles, like that kind of skews me out. I think I'll fly straight to Houston.
So you kind of like some crazy like Children of the Corn type of thing that you would like be least expecting. Or
Yeah, it's like Dusty Gannon said from Vision Video that like as you go like more into like the very rural areas, like if you look even like a little alternative, like they might like look at you like you're just like literally a paralysis demon just coming out
right.
from the corner. Yeah.
But also consider, because I think Dusty also kind of followed that kind of stuff up too, is like doing those kind of shows. That's where you are like a shining hope and beacon for those weird kids that are coming out to your shows, or those weird people that don't normally get acts like a Vision Video coming to them, you know? So,
Oh, it's important. I think like especially like the like I know that a person that I know their Dagger Dance, they have like their club night, or I think they did in Arkansas, and like it's just a part of the country that a lot of people skip over, like bands just kind of avoid it. And I feel like, you know, like people should spread a little bit more. That is true. Like we should try and like spread out and make it not so metropolitan, you know, like not keep it into the cities, you know, like it's all
right.
right.
And I think that's the hard part, is like, I think a lot of people, you find gatherings of gaggles of goths, you know, in the metro cities, because they've been so disenfranchised out in those rural areas and those small towns where, you know, it's like you're immediately labeled, you know, a witch or a Satanist because you're wearing all black. And, you know, what's that weird necklace you're wearing? You know, is that
Oh yeah.
what kind of cross is that? And
It's a Satan thing.
it's Satan
Yeah.
thing,
It's
right?
because yeah, we have all these bats because we just love Dracula. Like, I don't know, like yeah, you're right. Like, I mean, sometimes like just because I have like black painted nails and I wear like really like wicked kind of like rings or whatever, like I
I
feel like
have that
sometimes
ring.
people oh yeah.
I do. It's great,
Yeah.
isn't it?
I love it. It's pretty. Yeah.
Yep.
But just like seeing that, like sometimes people are like trying to give me my cash back, like at the register, and they see my hands and I'm just like, they just put it there like in front of me. They don't want to hand it to like my hand. Like
Yep.
it happens, you know, but like, here's another thing before we wrap up completely.
Yep.
I just want to also make it known that at the same time, I feel like as disenfranchised as you know, alternative people are, whether that's like, you know, punk or goth or whatever, I still think that at the end of the day, we are no longer like the weirdest looking people out there, you know, like in society, like because of TikTok, it's opened me up to like so many like alternative looks, you know, like all this like body mod stuff, you know, and like really
Right.
hardcore tattoo stuff. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but just like it opened up my eyes to like kind of like just because like we wear like black and stuff like that and like a little bit of like eyeshadow doesn't like I just don't feel like we're just like the weirdest bunch out there anymore. I
Nope.
think that like we should like count our blessings because like it can get weirder, you know, and like I feel like it's much more normalized now, you know, like I hear like a lot of people saying stuff like, you know, when I had purple hair in the 80s, like someone wanted to beat me up. And now I see like, you know, people working at like Walmart and Target have like pink hair and stuff. And I'm just like, that's a good thing. That is a good thing. You know, that should be a point of
But they
pride, you
should be,
know?
right. They should be proud to be like, hey, I paved the way. So, and I helped make it normalized so that people
Right.
at Walmart and Target could have their purple hair. Um, you know,
Yeah.
and you know what? My attitude is the weirder, the better. Like, bring on all the weird. I want as weird as you can get. I love it. I'm
Yeah. Let's shake it up.
definitely. So, well, it has been an awesome conversation with you. I greatly appreciate it. Obscure Undead viewers, I hope they all appreciate it as well. We've been speaking with James from Male Tears, and I know you said you've got some good stuff coming. So do you want to, we'll put the links to all your socials down below, and where people can find you on Bandcamp and Instagram and the TikToks and all of that.
All of that. Yeah.
So,
You know, this has been James signing off. We have a bunch of stuff coming out, but currently we have Trauma Club. It is out there to stream and anyone can listen to it if you want. If you like dance music, if you like stuff that sounds a bit retro, you know, like we just want to make people dance. And we are so happy to have been here on Obscure Undead talking to Ian, DJ Vamp Daddy.
woo,
Very cool people.
thanks. All right. Well, again, I'm Ian. Thank you for tuning in to Obscura Undead. Please click the likes and the subscribes and all that stuff. And until next time, keep it spooky. Bye.